Good morning. Can folk online just confirm you can see and hear, well, maybe not see, but hear us now? Okay. We are having some technical issues in the room today, so folk online won't be able to see us. We also won't be able to see you. So if you do put up your hand, Lindsay will let us know, and we'll move from there. The meeting won't be webcast, but it will be published online later. Perfect, thanks, Linus. So good morning and welcome to the hybrid meeting of the Communities Housing and Public Protection Committee on the 11th of March 2025. Please note that this meeting will be recorded and put onto the Council's website later, and we have some members and officers joining us remotely via Teams. And all attendees joining remotely, please switch off their camera and mute their microphone when not speaking. The camera and microphone should only be switched on when you're invited to speak. A reminder that members in the committee room will need to speak directly into the microphone in order for the sound to be picked up on the webcast. In the event of a vote, if members in the committee room could switch their microphone on to declare their vote, this will ensure it's picked up on the webcast. I'll now ask the clerk to advise the members participating today and for all members to confirm their attendance once their name has been announced by the clerk so that it's clear in the recording. Mrs McBain, can you please do the roll call and also read out the housekeeping? Thank you.
Thank you, Convener. So please just indicate that you're present. Convener?
Present.
Vice Convener?
Present.
Councillor Bouse?
Present.
Councillor Cross?
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Davidson?
Present.
Councillor Graham?
Present.
Councillor McClellan?
Present.
Councillor Mrs Stewart? Councillor Watson?
Present.
Thank you. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Before we begin, I would like to advise you of some general housekeeping matters. In the event of a fire or other emergency requiring our evacuation, you will hear a continuous single tone klaxon. You should proceed immediately out of the building via the designated exit routes, which are out via the door through which you entered and head back to the main staircase and down to the ground floor. On exiting the building, you should proceed to the Arts Centre on Queen Street, where we will wait until clearance is given to return to the building. The closest toilets are located at either end of the corridor of the main stairwell. It would also be appreciated if mobile phones could either be switched off or put on silent mode. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs McBain. Item 1, urgent business. There are no items. Item 2, exempt business. There are none. Are there any declarations of interest or transparency? Not seeing any hands. Deputations, we have 2 requests in relation to item 11.1. So there'll be 10 minutes for questions, 10 minutes for the deputation, then 10 minutes for questions. I do have Mr. Chowdhury, but he's not online. So I will come to Mr. Meiklejohn. Of course, take your time. That's okay.
Muttered up at this end.
Sorry, Mr. Meiklejohn, could you just use your microphone? Thank you.
That's me got past the first or the second technical obstacle. Introduction to what I'm going to be talking about. I'm going to be giving a response to the EIA opinion that's been provided and raise some issues that we have around it. I'm going to also respond to the report that was presented, particularly as an item in there that did raise quite a lot of alarm with the community. Also, would like to raise again why we should be looking at looking at a statutory inquiry, public inquiry for this process. And also I have a note from one of the local GPs which gives us an insight into the impact this is having on the health of residents. I also have a final slide which is some points to note in addition to it. Whether I have time to use that or not we'll wait and see. The impact EIA opinion that was given, we would like to challenge that. This opinion results in the skipping of what we see as a major part of the planning process for this development. The submission date for it was the 19th of December. The opinion was issued on the 8th of January. Bearing in mind this was over the Christmas period, which tends to be a notorious period for submitting things you want to get through in a rush by the council, we do not think that enough time was taken to give a full objective opinion on this. We're looking at demolishing 372 buildings. That will have an impact on the environment. The reports submitted do contain a lot of that, but not, for my opinion, and opinions of others I've discussed this with, in enough detail to satisfy HSE or SEPA requirements. We feel that they should have been involved in this part of the process. We did get a complaint to the planning department. They did give us a response mentioning the use of third parties to reduce the risk of conflict of interest in this process. However, the third parties involved were all involved in building the reports to be submitted to EIA. We don't have any third parties involved in the opinion as to whether that should have been should skip the full planning process or should bypass the need for an EIA. We think it should be. And as I mentioned before, neither SEPA or HSE seem to have contributed towards this. We would want Council to seriously consider redoing this, giving appropriate timescale and involving the correct environmental agencies to ensure this is properly assessed and that we're not cutting any corners to meet Council objectives. Next one is a response to the minutes that were announced. We thank the Council for agreeing to explore alternatives to support homeowners. This we see as a big step forward, and we do see it having a leeway to get both sides out of this mess. However, the other point is we do appreciate the Council's record of trying to balance professionalism with empathy. However, that seems to be undermined by Section 7 legal implications in the Council report. To us, I'm talking about the committee members on the TCRC. This looks like a blatant threat and an attempt to intimidate people into accepting the voluntary acquisition process. It seems a blatant attempt to remove the need for the CPO process by simply threatening to evict us from our properties based on investigations you do in different properties that have been recently carried out. We strongly object to that. We strongly object to those threats, and we see it as a clear and blatant attempt to bully and intimidate us into accepting voluntary acquisition, where the values being offered are significantly lower than the values that we would expect for the property. For public inquiry to support that, we believe that there's sufficient doubt on the legitimacy of actions and statements made by both councils and Scottish Parliament. We are getting conflicting information as to whether RAC is defective. This has strong parallels with the cladding scandal in terms of the information that's not being provided. We believe this would be made clear through a statutory public inquiry and no other means. There's vital questions to be answered that haven't been answered. We, as the residents impacted, we can't get those answers. Now, those answers could only be obtained through either legal action or a full statutory inquiry. It's the only way that we can get a true, fair and transparent process to determine not only the responsibilities but the root cause of this scandal and get it properly resolved in a fair and equitable manner. Health. I have a letter, well, it's a copy of an email we received from one of the local GPs, which I'll attempt to read out to you. The health impacts of this are remarkable. We have 60 patients who consulted us specifically because of health problems arising from the issue. There are many whose support structures are being disrupted in ways that will impact their quality of life directly and will likely lead to increased health and social care costs elsewhere. The disruption of family networks the disruption of family networks has huge distributed costs that cannot easily be captured. But the individual accounts reveal increased travel times, reduced hours of working to facilitate childcare, elderly care, and time off from work from health issues arising from the stress of the Iraq crisis. Wider anxiety in the community as to the imminent decline of the built environment, increased risk of criminality, loss of friendship for groups for children. These are typical threads in the story I hear. We are prescribing sedatives, sleeping medications, antidepressants to people who would not otherwise have needed these. These are not medications we use needlessly. They are quite considerable levels of distress arising from this process. Themes that come through constantly are betrayal, uncertainty, powerlessness, injustice, loss of community, financial fears, regret that they can no longer leave much to their children, and anger. Points to note. The plus side, other alternatives are being discussed, and we need to work with the council to ensure that these are viable, acceptable options. It is vitally important that we ensure that all homeowners that are impacted by this, RAC victims as I now regard them as, are given a fair and equitable resolution. That doesn't mean the council having to pay excess amounts of cash. We are looking through the alternatives to find ways of staying within the current budget. We are actively encouraging the dialogue on that reaches success. We don't want a protracted long legal action. This has gone on long enough. We are desperate to get an equitable and fair resolution for this and work with the council to be able to do that. However, we may have no choice. If the options are rejected, we will need to look at a long, protracted, painful choice. Personally, for me, the council's valuation is given in the moment. I'm not accepting it. It's too much of a financial impact on me at my time of life. It is completely unacceptable and unfair. To cite a couple of examples I've got Peter Drummond and another technical issue. Bear with me. In fact, no, we have specialists in the area of structural engineering and structural architects who all state homeowners have been put in a position of facing huge bills, financial difficulties, and possibly homelessness through no fault of their own. This is a common thread that's given by all professional bodies that are commenting on this situation. There is some discussion and some dubiety about RAC being defective. Housing officer says it isn't defective. How can he state that? This material comes into contact with water, it severely degrades its life. It gets into contact with heat or cold, it can impact the structural integrity of it. In Scotland, you're telling me that isn't cause for a defective material? Come on. Surely this is wrong. So why again, if we don't get resolution through the workshops that we're going through to meet an equitable means, then next stage has to be a full public inquiry. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Meiklejohn. Are there any questions? Councillor Watson.
Thank you, Convener, and thank you, Mr. Meiklejohn, for your presentation. In the second section of your presentation, you talked about some of the legal implications which are included in the paper, and you said that it felt like a threat to force RAC victims out of their houses and to accept lower offers. I was wondering if you could say a little bit more about what you felt those legal threats were.
Sorry, can you use your microphone? Sorry, thank you.
Sorry, technical issue again. Well, it's not, it's a mental issue. I keep forgetting to switch the button on. We're looking at this to cover the question. We've quoted elements of both the Housing Act and Buildings Acts of Scotland. as means of determining if the houses have high criticality of structural failure, that we could be evicted. They're looking at monitoring houses that they acquire to determine if they have any critical failures, to then use that as a means, or my reading of what's been put there, as a means to evict us on safety grounds or impose improvements to the house and changes to support the defective structure, which would be at high cost. Council have also stated that they will take action to carry out those works and will charge us for the costs for them. We have the recent inspection. Recent inspection contains no critical risk of failure, none. So putting this threat out for me and for everyone in the community that has read it is a clear tactic to intimidate us into accepting the voluntary acquisition. And it does seem like a clear way where they're attempting to avoid the need for the compulsory purchase order process, for which we think the council believe they will not get approval to proceed with.
Mr. Graham.
Can I just have 1 second? I need to.
Right, thanks, Mr. Meikle-John, for your presentation. You mentioned that the doctor's letter and how it was causing anxiety and they're having to provide sedatives. Has that been heightened by the fact that they may be living in the middle of a demolition site?
It's the whole process. It's the whole process. It's living in the middle of a demolition site for a potentially long period of time, but it's also the fact that they could lose their houses, especially the latest legal implications that will have it's had an effect on my health. I have really struggled to get a good night's sleep through this. I'm waking up, my sleep is disrupted constantly, and this is going through my head. Part of it was preparing for the deposition, but it is, and at some point in the not too distant future, I'm going to have to seek medical help for this because it can't continue. I've been through this before and was starting to recover. This inclusion of the legal implications has put that back now. I am feeling anxious all of the time. I'm finding it increasingly difficult to focus on my job at work because of the impact that this is having on me. Others on the same boat. I've had several people who haven't yet seen the doctor are looking to consider it because they're not being able to sleep. The sleep is being disrupted. They can't focus on what they need to do because their mind is on this. It's the whole bit from having to either give their houses away for a fraction of the value that they had when they bought them. It's the fact that we can now be evicted, forced from our homes by fair means or foul. It is also the fact that if they don't sell the house, they are going to be living in the middle of a building site for a number of years. All of those coming together is having, as was mentioned in the doctor's letter, is having a detrimental effect, not only on the people, the RAC victims, but those in the close vicinity. They are also very concerned is having an impact on them, that they're going to be living in extremely close proximity to a building site.
Seeing any hands, thank you again for your deputation, Mr. Meikle-John. And we'll now turn, I understand Mr. Chowdhury is now online. Mr. Chowdhury, are you there? It doesn't appear that he is online, so we will move on. Turning back to the agenda, we've got them. Oh, Mr. Chowdhury. We have a Harun Yusuf. Is that Mr. Chowdhury online? It's an external. Doesn't appear to be him. Okay, we'll move on. Back to the agenda. At item 5, minute of the previous meeting of the 14th of January. Are there any issues? Are we happy to agree?
Hello, 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 hello.
Hi, is that Mr. Chowdhury?
Yeah, speaking. Sorry, I can't work the system. Sorry.
That's okay. We'll go back to the deputation item then. Mr. Chowdhury, you've got 10 minutes to present, and then there'll be 10 minutes for questions.
Thank you. Sorry about that. Right. So I'm a little bit stressed about that. So deputation speech to Aberdeen City Council, chair, councillors and officers. Thank you for allowing me to present this deputation today. I start with due diligence and financial model. In reference to point 1.2 of your report, I must ask whether the council believes that due diligence has been adequately undertaken in regards to the RAC homeowner situation and whether the correct financial model has been followed. Across Scotland, we have seen that thorough cost assessments have led to significant reductions in estimated replacement costs. For example, Clackmannshire Council has only recently now cut the estimated cost of roof replacements from 39,000 to 20,000 per homeowner, resulting in a new sundry debt proposal following direct engagement with homeowners and myself. Environmental impact assessment. On point 1.3, I acknowledge that the Tory RAC campaign group is also speaking today and calling for an environmental impact assessment, EIA, to be included in the planning process. I raised this very issue in my last deputation, albeit in a more measured way, simply seeking clarity on why the council believed an EIA was not required for this project. Additionally, I warned that the Tory RAC campaign group is planning their proposal could fail if an EIA was deemed necessary. Okay, so exploring viable alternatives. Section 2.1 states that the plans can still be adapted and that engagement with homeowners will continue. I sincerely hope that my proposals will be considered in this spirit, particularly in light of developments in other local authorities. Dundee City Council is set to announce a 40% grant towards homeowners, RAC replacement costs, while Clackmannshire Council is offering the sundry loan. A hybrid approach combining both of these models is entirely within the powers of Aberdeen City Council, clearly, and would provide a fairer solution for affected homeowners and no doubt cost you less overall than demolition and redevelopment. You would also reduce loss of crucial housing stock. Demolition programme and voluntary acquisitions. In section 2.4, the council acknowledges that the demolition programme is subject to interdependencies, which could delay proceedings. Given this, I urge the council to recognise that a significant majority of homeowners are refusing to accept the meagre voluntary acquisition offers currently on the table. Despite acknowledging the homeowners' plight, the council has failed to set a precedent for fair acquisitions. It is widely recognised that the current situation is not the homeowners' fault, but rather a consequence of past cost-saving measures by this very council, in whatever guise was operating at the time, during the construction of these properties. Transparency and homeowner support. Regarding section 2.1, with so much uncertainty around property values and acquisition processes, I formally request an amendment to reinstate verbal reporting on rehoming numbers at future committee meetings. In section 3.3, the report acknowledges that some properties within the wider site are privately owned and that affected homeowners can pursue their own solutions. However, the council has failed to inform these homeowners that they could submit group applications for available financial assistance, including loans, shared funding or grants for remedial works. Moreover, I have repeatedly requested information on the locations of these private properties. I was denied access under the guise of GDPR and confidentiality laws, yet today council has openly shared this information in its report. There is the opportunity for these homeowners, and I urge the council to address. I'm changing a part of my speech to fit in with Miranda Radley's requirements. I'm urging the council to engage with these homeowners so that they are aware that furthermore, I request that no misleading that they are aware that they can apply for, in essence, private funding for their roofs in isolation. directly to the council. It may fail, but at least that opportunity is there for them to pursue. I request that no misleading or distorted statement to be, forget that, because I'll just get told off by Miranda Radley again. Public inquiry. It's also worth noting that none of the properties classified as medium or high risk have progressed to critical risk. This strongly suggests that the council's actions thus far have been premature and rushed. Given the likelihood of a public inquiry into the handling of RAC, I call on the council to pause its current demolition and acquisition plans and instead focus on properly exploring all viable alternatives, as other local authorities have done. Your council may not have the authority to call for a public inquiry. It can urge the Scottish Government to do so. You also have the power to continue advocating for a national fund. My proposal submitted through the Scottish Parliament petitions process suggests using the cladding levy, building levy for Grenfell, post Grenfell Tower incident, the affordable homes budget, or the creation of a dedicated fund to support affected homeowners. This proposal has been publicly endorsed by a RIC spokesperson and is available online for anyone to review. Surely it is time for ACC to intensify its efforts towards securing a national solution. Aberdeen City Council has a duty to act with due diligence, transparency and fairness. Homeowners affected by RAC should not be forced into financial ruin or displacement due to past decisions beyond their control. I urge the council to reconsider its approach, explore more sustainable solutions and ensure that affected residents are provided with the support and financial assistance they deserve. I also wanted to add, I'm also going to make a personal request. I request that no misleading or distorted statements be made following my deputation, particularly through the use of leading questions that misrepresent my position after I've spoken and unable to respond.
Thank you, Mr. Chowdhury. Are there any questions? Councillor Watson.
Thank you, Convener, and thank you, Mr. Chowdhury, for your deputation. I was interested that you talked about Clackmannanshire, and you said there was an estimate for the cost of roof replacements there, which went down from, I believe you said 39,000 to 29,000. I was just wondering if you could talk about the process that led to that reduction in the cost for those.
Okay, so I need to bring a bit of clarity to that. So the cost of the roof replacement went down from 39,000 to 20,000. The additional 9,000 is for the application of a new render and cavity wall insulation. In essence, a retrofit, bringing these properties up to modern environmental standards. The process behind that was a lot of engagement in the background. I held 3 private meetings with chief officers of Clackmannanshire Council. I then brought all the homeowners into 2 private meetings, and we set out our position that we didn't agree with the voluntary acquisition process. These homes, we believe, were able to be built correctly. Some of us actually submitted quotations that were obtained from local builders with the correct accreditations and qualifications, indicating that the cost from the desktop review was overzealous, to say the least. It worked because the council was willing to listen. But I think if you listen to meetings, deputations I've led before, Clackmannanshire Council have never really been that difficult. Even from the outset, when they were offering voluntary acquisition process, there was a clear agenda for them to try and obtain as fair a price as possible. When they felt it wasn't possible, they quickly recognised the needs of their local populace and decided to return to the remedial works proposal, and that has now taken priority. And the bravery of that council needs to be recognised. They have evicted people from these homes. These people have been outside of the homes for 1.5 years, 1.5 years. In that time, these properties will have been empty. Perhaps there's been some deterioration. Their initial plans and priority had always been voluntary acquisition, yet they were concerned enough for their people, recognising the solution wasn't a best fit, to return to remedial works after such a long time and properties being vacant. Anything is possible, but only if the council, Aberdeen City Council, is willing to address the needs of its community and recognising their current stalemate, where people are not engaging with your voluntary acquisition process. Less than 29, as per the last report, were even interested in pursuing a VA. Only 4 people have accepted it. These numbers are a telling story, but we have a time to rectify this and to come up with a solution that works as a best fit for all. I think Aberdeen City Council has to recognise that the impact on their reputation, that continuing to drive behind an unfair process that is in essence attempting to force people into bankruptcy and homelessness, simply is not going to work.
Thank you. Are there any additional questions? Councillor McClellan.
Thank you, convener, and thank you, Mr. Chowdhury, for your deputation. I'd be quite interested to know, I understand you speak to us as the chair of the UK RAC group. How many members of the affected residents, homeowners living in Torry, are members of your organisation? How many do you speak for?
I get asked this nearly every week, and it seems you seem to be oblivious to the responses I provide. Over 800 people in Aberdeen are subscribed to my email and receive my emails. I don't visit as regularly as I used to because my daughter's not present there at the moment either. I don't have time to go to TCRC meetings as I'd like to, but I am continuously liaising with members of the community through Facebook, through a WhatsApp group that I've created, and responses in email. If you need evidence of that, I can create an online petition and get Aberdeen residents to sign it, so you can see the significant quantity. But I don't think that's purposeful, and I don't think that's necessary.
Councillor McClellan.
Thank you, Mr. Chowdhury. I'm still not sure exactly how many members of the community are members of the UK RAC group. I think it's quite a simple question. I didn't ask how many folk are subscribed to your emails. I asked how many members you speak to us, the council, the committee here today. You've made claims and highlighted your views on the matter. I think it's important that we know how many people you speak for. I think it's a reasonable point. Thank you.
Yeah. Our constitution says that to become a member of the UK RAC campaign group, you simply have to subscribe to our emails. What do you want me to say to? I've said over 800.
I've got another question from Councillor Graham.
I think it's similar to what I asked before. I mean, you speak about the costs and the costs being excessive. Has anyone applied privately to get estimate costs for the repair of their roofs? And I'm speaking about 3 and 4 bedroom properties.
I'll be getting one this weekend, and I'll be sharing that with Aberdeen City Council. Thank you very much for that. But also there has been a 1-bedroom flat that obtained an external contractor's quotation from a professional accredited certified contractor, and the figures that they submitted have been to the valuation agency office have come out at less than 50% of the cost that was deducted. I think it's more than, the deduction is more than 50% less than the cost that was being deducted as a consequence of costs provided as per a model provided by Aberdeen City Council. It's clear to me that the figures that are currently being used and are creating this agenda for a voluntary acquisition process are misguided, ill-informed, and I urge the council to finally accept my advice and to actually obtain a costed estimate from a valid contractor, so that we at least have clarity going forward